Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Last week I did a quick unboxing and initial impressions video of this watch here. This is the Long Island watch Calabro, the ISL 317 reference. And in that unboxing and initial impressions video, I compared it to my existing Calabro. This here is the ISL 244, introduced, I don't know, a few years ago. I've had this for several months. This watch was recently reissued. And in that video, I was kind of comparing the similarities and the differences between the two. Now, this watch was sent to me by Long Island Watch, so thank you very much to them. However, I'm not being compensated in any way. I have to return this watch when I'm done with this review, and in fact, I'm paying for shipping to send it back. Now, the thing about watches when they're reissued, what they'll sometimes do is just change the color of the dial, maybe change the clasp or the bracelet, and then just say it's a reissue watch and it's all new. But not Long Island Watch, and I really got to give them props because they made quite a few significant changes when you compare it to the watch that they just put out a few years ago, like you see here. And I'll go over some of the similarities because the list of similarities are a lot shorter than the list of differences. First thing that's similar is in fact the case. It is a 40 millimeter case, 14 millimeters thick, 20 millimeter lugs, and a 48 millimeter lug to lug with both of them. The case back on both watches, as you can see, are the same. They share the same signed crown, and they share the same H-link style bracelet that I'm a really big fan of with screw pin links. Also, the bezel is identical with both watches. So there's pluses and minuses to that. I wish there was an improvement to the bezel compared to my model with the new generation, but it's in fact the same bezel. Now let's look at the differences. And obviously the first thing that you notice is in fact the dial. They introduced a new variety of dial colors. When my initial watch was issued, you had this full lume dial. There was a red dial, there was a blue dial, there was a gorgeous purple dial that I wish I'd picked up, and there was also a black dial. And I've seen videos of even a Pogue version. However, I've never seen that on their website. Now with the new version, you've got this beautiful sand colored dial. You have an anthracite dial, and reference number ISL 318 has a two-tone horizontal dial. The top is blue, the bottom is brown, kind of representing maybe heaven and earth or just the sky and the ground. The next thing you'll notice that's different is in fact the text on the dial. You see how the Islander logo is printed along with the name Islander. Down below, and then above the 6 o'clock you have automatic along with the water resistance. Well, in the first iteration, you can kind of see how the text is a little bit thicker. It's not as crisp, not as sharp. Down below you have automatic water resistance in meters as well as feet. Also, you'll notice the dial design. This model, ISL 317, has that grid pattern, latitude and longitude lines. It even looks like a radar screen. The anthracite color has the same type of dial, but as I mentioned, ISL 318 is completely different. You still have that horizontal line going across the 9 and the 3, but below that what you kind of see in the brown is an altimeter, and then above that you have the blue sky. Where on my watch, it's just a flat color. This happens to be a full lume dial, and it's just a flat color, but they were all flat colors. The purple was flat, the blue was flat, the red was flat. Nothing wrong with that. Just a difference in the two, where here you have that sand color, but with a little bit of texture along with that grid pattern. Here there's no texture, it's just flat and a single color. You'll also notice that the second hand is different between the two watches. Another obvious difference are the hands. Here they're more like spears, where on my watch it's partially skeletonized and they look more like swords. Also, the applied indices are different on this watch. Here the dial is numbered except for 3, 6, 9, and 12, where on my watch, it's in fact the exact opposite. You have the 3, 6 is still a date window, but you have 9 and 12, and everything else is an hour marker, where here they're all numbered except for the hour markers at 3, 6, 9, and 12. It's a nice difference. They didn't just mail it in when it came to reissuing this watch. They really put in a lot of time and made a lot of changes between the two. The difference is the 24-hour ring around the rehaut. Here you can see they're all marked in even numbers, and in between you have an arrow pointing down. You have that stark contrast between the black and the orange on this watch, where on mine The hours are all individually numbered, 1 through 24. And there is some contrast between day and night. However, the contrast is not as stark as it is here between the black and the orange. The date window is also another big difference. Here you have a large date window with an easy to read date, where on my watch, the date window is considerably smaller. It's kind of framed out in crosshairs, and it's colored. Now, the last big difference you'll see between these two watches is the clasp. And Long Island Watch updated their Islander clasps with this double push button scissor style clasp, but it's also got on the fly micro adjust. The clasp that came with this watch is not this clasp right here. I replaced this clasp. This is also a ratcheting clasp. It's got a double push button here that helps you extend, kind of like a diver's extension. But the original clasp that came with this watch is one that you see right here. And it had 3 positions of micro adjust, double push button as well, but certainly nowhere near the quality that you're getting now with this one right here. So now let's talk about improvements. Well, obviously the biggest improvement is in fact this clasp. However, even the clasp that I put on my watch, while it's a nice clasp, don't get me wrong, but it's still not up to the level of quality that Long Island Watch is putting on their clasps today. My clasp is nice. It's a great aftermarket clasp. Cost me maybe 20 bucks. I don't even recall, but it's certainly not anywhere near the fit and finish and quality of the clasp that it's currently coming with. So this is a fantastic clasp. Another improvement in my opinion is the legibility of this watch. It is easier to read than my watch. Now, maybe that's because I went with a full lume dial. Had I gone with a different color, maybe things would be different. You can still get the older version, the ISL 193, the green watch. And from what I understand, they upgraded the bracelet on that watch. So you're getting the same bracelet here on the last generation watch with the ISL 193. The anthracite is easier to read. The one with the altitude style dial, or what they're calling attitude dial, I don't know if that's a misprint on their website, that's also easier to pick up than my watch here. Also, the two-tone hour ring is much easier to read on this watch, as I mentioned on my watch. Now, as for negatives, this watch compared to mine, it's the bezel. Now, my bezel is spot on, but if you notice here, it's slightly off a little bit. It just does not align 100%. There's no backplay in the bezel, really, but it will not line up on the 12 o'clock just as it should. You can get close, but no cigar. Always off by just a bit. The other thing that I mentioned is that this bezel is not bidirectional, and in a world timer watch, I would really prefer to have bidirectional capability, because at least when I'm changing the time an hour, going back 1 hour versus going ahead 23 hours is a bit of a pain in the neck. Now, as far as my final conclusion, which one would I choose now that I have both? Well, as I mentioned, this is definitely going back to Long Island Watch. I have this on loan from them. Thank you again very much for giving this to me on loan. But if I had to choose between the two, I would probably still stick with mine. The reason why? I just love having a full lume dial. When this thing lights up, it lights up the world. I also prefer the hands and indices of my watch versus the other one. The dial is numbered at 12, 3, and 9. Where here it's the exact opposite, where the 3, 6, 9, and 12. Now, I believe the applied indices are slightly larger than they are on mine, but I still prefer the look of mine. So I'm quite happy with my purchase. Nothing wrong with this watch. Maybe I should have requested the ISL 318 that had that two-tone altimeter dial, but this is still a very attractive watch. I still got to ding it regarding the bezel, but it's a fine watch nonetheless, and you're getting a lot of quality for the price. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you would choose by leaving a comment below. If you like this video, please take a second to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching.